Welcome. It's Good Friday. Glad you could join us as we continue along as we look at Passion Week. We just want to be thinking of what took place and transpired last evening. We followed Jesus yesterday, Thursday evening, as he goes into the upper room with his disciples, has a Passover feast with them. We know that they will leave that upper room probably around 11:30 or so, heading towards the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus and his disciples will pray. That time of prayer will probably last someplace between 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Probably around 1 o'clock, though, we have the confrontation in the garden as Judas will again bring the Roman entourage, the military officials, guard, temple guard, to capture Jesus and arrest him. We know that around 1:30, 3 o'clock, there's going to be a couple different things that happen. We have a trial that takes place at Annas' house, who is a former high priest. And Jesus, again, receives initial physical abuse at that first trial. Then he'll be taken to the current high priest for the second trial, and that's at Cephas's house. And there at Cephas's house is going to be the Sanhedrin court, which is 70 individuals that would be doing this meeting in the middle of the night, which is pretty crazy. At this specific time, Jesus is going to be bloodied by abuse. We have an understanding that probably from 3 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock, Jesus was probably just imprisoned there in Cephas's palace. Right around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, the third trial of all the Jewish religious leaders, the elders, including the high priest and the scribes and the whole Sanhedrin, they will again decide to take Jesus to the Roman government to have Jesus killed. It's upon leaving this trial that Peter will commit his final denial of Jesus, and the rooster will crow. Jesus again will stand before Pilate right around 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Pilate will pass him off to Herod to try to get him to make an accusation, to have him bear the responsibility. Herod won't. He'll send him back to Pilate. It's at this interaction, probably right around 8 o'clock in the morning, that Pilate's just feeling that pressure. His own wife comes to him and says, "Have nothing to do with this man. I had a dream last night." And yet the Jews keep on pressing Pilate to make the decision to again kill Jesus. In desperation, Pilate is going to offer Barabbas as an exchange, thinking that Jesus would be released and Barabbas continue to be held in prison. But the people cry out that Barabbas be released. With that being said, Jesus is now sentenced right around that 8 o'clock in the morning. And we know the story as Pilate tries to wash his hands of the situation and puts that responsibility back on the Jews. Right thereafter, for the next hour or so, the soldiers are going to torture Jesus. They're going to put the thorns on his brow. They're going to whip him. They're going to scourge him. They're going to insult him. They're going to beat him until he's totally unrecognizable. Right around the 9 o'clock hour, a little bit before that 9 o'clock hour, he's going to be taken out to the place of the skull, also called Golgotha. Right around 9 o'clock, he's going to be nailed up and put on that cross. Many interactions with the prophecies that were fulfilled in the Old Testament will be fulfilled at this time. Things that will be said, people will be done. He'll have some interactions and be mocked and abused again as he's there on the cross. We know at 12 o'clock, though, at noon, there's an intense pain and suffering that happens. Darkness would fill the earth for the next 3 hours. And we know that Jesus is going to suffer great emotional pain, physical pain, as he is again being crucified for our sins. There's going to be an earthquake that takes place here as he hangs on that cross, probably closer to that 3 o'clock hour. The temple curtain will be torn again right around that 3 o'clock hour. We know Jesus is going to cry out for thirst a couple different times as well in this process of time. As we see that time unfold, though, we get to the 3 o'clock time, and that's when Jesus is going to usher in those words that are so meaningful and so intense that Jesus is going to cry out with all that he has, his energy, and he is going to say, "It is finished." And at that, he will give up his spirit. Those words have a huge, significant implication on our relationship with God. After this, though, that night, as the soldiers will again thrust a spear into Jesus' side sometime before nightfall, Joseph of Arimathea is going to be permitted to take down the body and to bury him in his tomb in a nearby grave. The tomb will be sealed with a large stone. The women will be watching to see where this is so they can come back at a later time and seek to do a proper burial to care for Jesus' body. No one expected that he would return from the tomb. It was the understanding that Jesus had died. All are grieved, all are saddened, and now they have lost their hope. But you know it, Sunday is coming.